All right, Algebra 2, as promised, here is a little video covering all the answers for this mega test review. All right, so some of you have been here a few days, one day, no days yet this semester. Here are the answers. So if just be ready to take this exam on the day you return, okay? There's plenty of videos online. This is review. We can do that. We can handle it. Be ready to take this test if you're not back on Monday, on Tuesday. All right, so first off, negative x squared means, as we see up here, if y, or f of x, equals a negative x squared, we have an igloo. If y equals a positive x squared, we have a u. So we have an igloo here, and what does an igloo have? It has a max. That's the first of my really 4 answers. The y-intercept is when x is 0, so it's staring at you right there. The y-intercept is y equals 1. Find the vertex. It's all about negative b over 2a. That's the x-coordinate of the vertex. That's my middle term, so the opposite of 12, negative 12 over 2 times a. Negative 12 over negative 4 is a positive 3. I take that 3 and I plug it in for x there and there, which I've done right here. That's what f of 3 means. If the x-coordinate of the vertex is 3, then the y-coordinate of the vertex is plug 3 in for x, 19. Those are my 1, 2, 3, 4 points there for answers. All right, negative x squared, which means this has another max because it makes an igloo. The y-intercept is y equals negative 7. Negative b over 2a, that's the x-coordinate of the vertex, so b is 4, so I have the opposite of 4, negative 4 over 2 times a is a negative 1. Negative 4 over negative 2 is a positive 2. I'm going to plug 2 in for x. I'm going to square 2, then I jab it with a negative. I get a negative 3. The vertex is 2 comma negative 3. All right, so number 3 here, you have a positive x squared. Positive x squared makes a u, so we have a minimum. The y-intercept is negative 2. Y equals negative 2. Negative b over 2a, the opposite of b over 2 times 3. X-coordinate of your vertex is negative 1, so plug negative 1 in for x, square it, plus 6 times negative 1, minus 2. I've done the work here to get negative 5. The vertex is 1 at negative 5. On 4, you have another positive x squared. That's a u, and a u has a minimum as its vertex. The y-intercept is right here. If x is 0, then you have 3. The y-intercept is y equals 3. Negative b over 2a, so the opposite of a negative 8 would be a positive 8 over 2 times a. 8 over 4 is 2. The x-coordinate of the vertex is 2, so I plug now 2 in for x there and there to figure out the y-coordinate of my vertex. I'm plugging 2 in for x there and there. I get negative 5 again. 2 comma negative 5. So those will be some of the more challenging questions on the exam. I know they start our test review. Conjugate, folks, is the same 2 terms, just with the opposite sign in between. So the conjugate of 8 minus 7i would be 8 plus 7i. The conjugate of negative 11 plus 4i wouldn't be 11 minus 4i. It'd be negative 11 minus 4i. You have the same 2 terms, negative 11 and 4i, opposite sign. All right, what is the conjugate of 12 plus 3i? It'd be 12 minus 3i. What is the conjugate of 7i? Well, 7i is like 0 plus 7i, so the conjugate would be 0 minus 7i, which is a negative 7i. What's the conjugate of negative 4 minus 2i? Negative 4 plus 2i. And what's the conjugate of 0 minus 5i, which is what it is, or negative 5i? It'd be 0 plus 5i. 0 plus 5i is 5i. All right. These are some more moderate questions here. Write a quadratic equation with the given roots. So if I tell you that x is 2 and x is 4, and I move this over, if x equals 2, well, that's because x minus 2 being the factor, was equal to 0. If x equals 4, that means x minus 4 was a positive on the right. Now it's a negative on the left. X minus 4 was the factor. If it was set equal to 0, x minus 4 equals 0. I get x equals 4. So my factors are x minus 2 x minus 4. Now, I don't need the equals 0 part there, okay, because I'm writing my equation. And it doesn't have to be set equal to 0. It can be f of x equals or y equals. I'm going to FOIL first, outer, inner, last. I'm going to combine like terms, x squared minus 6x plus 8. Pause this whenever you need to. I'm going to make it, I don't want to make a 40-minute video here. So if I go too quick, just pause it. Move the negative 3 over, move the negative 7 over. So those negative 3 and negative 7 become a positive 3 and a positive 7. First, outer, inner, last. Take a look at 13 here. If x is equal to 1/2, then I don't want to mess with a fraction. So instead, I get rid of the fraction. How do I get rid of a 1/2? Well, I multiply both sides by the denominator 2. 2x now equals 1. Well, if 2x equals 1, I can move the 1 over. That means 2x minus 1 is in a parenthesis, and x plus 3 is in a parenthesis. 2x squared plus 6x minus x minus 3. Combine like terms. All right, take a look at 14. I'm going to triple both sides. 3x is equal to a negative 2, x equals 1. 3x plus 2, x minus 1, in parentheses. First, outer, inner, last. Combine like terms. Okay, foiling should be pretty easy for us by now. Speaking of that, I'm going to give the answers quickly to 15 through 20. That is all from Algebra 1. All right, all from Algebra 1. Let's take a look here. First, outer, inner, last. I'm just going to draw the arrows to show you how I was multiplying. I think we can simplify these well enough. Again, pause this whenever you need to. We're going to roll through this part. First, outer, inner, last. First, outer, inner, last. Notice how the middle terms cancel. That's what happens when we multiply conjugates. 3x, 3x, 2 and 2, opposite sign. All right, first, outer, inner, last. Combine like terms. Just remember, x times x is x squared. Saw that error a little bit too much in your last quiz of last semester. First, outer, inner, last. And on 20, first, outer, inner, last. If something is squared, write it twice. 12 and 12 doesn't give you 0, but 24, because you have positive 12 plus 12. All right, then we are factoring. So we've got easy factoring for the first 4. Now it says factor, so these things can be factored. Please don't show any quadratic formula. You're not solving for anything. You don't have an equal sign. All right, instead you ask yourself, what multiplies to 56 and differs by 1? 8 and 7 multiply to 56. You have a negative constant. The constant is the product. That means you have a negative product. That means one of the factors is positive. One's negative. The middle term is positive, so that means the larger factor, 8, is positive. 8, positive 8, put together with a negative 7, gives you a positive 1 as a sum and a negative 56 as a product. 1 multiplies to 63, differs by 2. 9 and 7. Middle term is negative, so the bigger factor this time is negative. Negative 9 plus 7 gives you negative 2. Negative 9 times 7 gives you negative 63. 1 multiplies to 30 and adds to 11, 6 and 5. 1 multiplies to 81, adds to negative 18, negative 9, and negative 9. Or x minus 9 squared. All right, 25 through 28, you got to guess it and check it. Again, these factor. Don't do anything with the quadratic formula. You are factoring. We're not looking for solutions. So, there's only one way to get 2x squared. And that is a 2x and an x. Everything is positive, so that's why I put plus and plus. There's only one way to get 3 and 1. So it's just guess where the 3 is going to go, guess where the 1 is going to go. And I know we did these in class. So 2x squared, sorry, you do the outer and inner part of FOIL. 2x and 3x gives you the 5x that we want. All right, 26, there's only one way to get 3x squared. It's 3x and x. You have a positive constant, but a negative middle term. That means everything is negative. Your factors that are, you got a negative 4, possibly, and a negative 2. Or it could be negative 8 and negative 1, had I not written it like this. Anyway, they're both negative, because a negative times a negative is a positive. Negative 6x minus, Negative 6x minus 4x is, in fact, the negative 10x that you want in the middle. I tried to fool a class by putting a positive 4 here and a negative 2, negative 4 here and a positive 2 there. Did give you negative 10x, but a negative times a positive is a negative 8. You want a positive 8. What multiplies 12 and adds to 19? Definitely, nope, I'm just thinking something out. Retract that. That will not be edited out, but that was a big boo-boo. Nope, because that's not. First off, nothing does. Secondly, guess and check. 5x squared. How do you get 5x squared as a product? 5x and x. Everything is positive, so put plus, plus. Now let's look at 12. What multiplies 12? 12 and 1, 6 and 2, 3 and 4. 15x plus 4x is 19x. You just got to guess. All right? Let's say you guessed 6 and 2. You and pencil would be checking this out. That's 10x and 6x, and that's 16x. You want 19x. So you're like, all right, I'm going to try 2 and 6 here. Here's 30x, and that's 2x. That's 32x. So 6 and 2 don't work. All right? Well, there's only one way to get 2x squared. It's 2x and x. This time I have a negative constant, which means one of these is positive, one of them is negative, my factors. Multiplies 20. So it can't be 2 and 10, because if I put a 2 here, 2x and 2 can factor more. If I put a 10 here, 2x and 10 can factor more. And if I put 5 and 4, if I use 5 and 4, I can't put a 4 here, because 2x and 4 can factor more. It will always be simplified. So I put a 5 here, and if I put a 5 there, see, and let's say I didn't have the plus and the minus there, I would have 8x, and then I would have 5x. And that's what we did in class. Is there a way to make for 8 and 5 with one of them being negative and one of them being positive to get you a negative 3x? And there is. If this is negative 8x plus 5x, which means that's a minus 4, and that's a plus 5. All right. Then we're going to write all our answers in A plus BI form, the real then the imaginary. So I'm just combining like terms. That says plus. 8 plus 4 is 12. 7 plus a negative 2 is 5 with the i's. 15 minus 9 is 6. 5 minus a negative 4 is positive 9. I there. Again, these should be pretty quick and easy. Negative 11 plus 7 is a negative 4. 2i plus a negative 3i minus I. You can put minus 1i, but minus I is great. Negative 8 minus a negative 11 is 3. Negative 5 minus 3 is a negative 8i. Now it's first, outer, inner, last. First, outer, inner, last. It's important to know that I squared is a negative 1. If I is the square root of negative 1, and you square both sides, when you square root, that number just drops on out. Can't leave I squared in your answer. So if you see I squared here, you need to rewrite it as negative 1. That means negative 20 times a negative 1 is a positive 20. That's how we get 26 minus 7i. You combine those middle terms, i's, like they're x's. Treat them like they're x's. All right, we got conjugates again. First, outer, inner, last, and that's why the i's cancel. Minus 9 times a negative 1 plus 9, you get 25 as our solution. 8 plus 2i squared. We're going to write 8 plus 2i twice. 64 plus 69 plus 69 plus 4i squared. The i's don't cancel, they double. 32i. I squared is a negative 1. So that positive 4 is going to turn into a negative 4. That positive 4I squared turns into a negative 4. 64 minus 4 is 60. $30 minus 24I plus 25I minus 20I squared. I, negative 20 times a negative 1 is positive 20. 30 plus 20 is 50. 50 plus I. 7 minus I. I'm going to write it twice. 49 minus 7I minus 7I. Negative I times a negative I is I squared. Negative 7I minus 7I is a negative 14I. I squared is literally a negative 1. 49 minus 1 is 48. 48 minus 14I is our solution. And this is what we finished on Wednesday. We got to the end of this page. Thursday, you were to watch that video, whether at home or at school, and write down those answers either on the paper you received Thursday in class or on a separate sheet of paper. If you are out of class, 4 minus 3 is 1, 2 minus a negative 2 is a positive 4I, not 0. And on Friday, this is what we did in class. Almost all of them. Find the value of C that makes each trinomial a perfect square, then write it as a perfect square. So how do I complete the square? I take half the middle term. Half of 2 is 1. Then I take that number and square it. I take half the middle term, then I square that number. So C is 1. What multiplies to 1 and adds to 2? 1 twice. That's why it's x plus 1 squared. All of that's my answer. Half of negative 10 is a negative 5. Take negative 5 and square it, you get 25. X squared minus 10x plus 25, that's what C is. What multiplies to 25 adds to a negative 10, negative 5 twice. It's always half the middle term. Your factor is always half the middle term. On 41, we'll take half of negative 24. Half of negative 24 is a negative 12. Take negative 12 and square it. C is 144. What multiplies to 144 and adds to negative 24? Negative 12 twice. Take half of 6, square it. What multiplies to 9 and adds 6? 3 twice. 43. Take half of negative 8, square it. What multiplies to 16 and adds to negative 8? Negative 4 twice. Take half of 28, it's 14. Take 14 and square it. What multiplies to 196 and adds to 18? Holy cow. Always half the middle term, 14 and 14. Inside the square roots of the sweets quadratic formula is the discriminant. And the discriminant tells you what type of solutions you're going to have. If you have a negative number inside here, you got to take out the negative and put an I, so you have 2 imaginary. If you have a positive number like 37, you have something plus or minus root 37, you'd have 2 real. And if you have 0 in here, you're going to have 1 real solution. We talked about that in class. So you're going to give me the discriminant. What number is b squared minus 4ac? B squared minus 4ac. That's what you're doing. Tell me what that means for what type of solutions you have. So b squared minus 4 times a times c is 64. Minus 64 is 0. If you have 0 inside the square root, you're going to have 1 real solution. B squared minus 4 times a times c. 9 minus 56 is a negative 43. If you have a plus or minus square root of negative 43, you have plus or minus I root 47. Plus or minus means 2. I means imaginary solutions. B squared minus 4 times a times c. 100 minus 12 is 88. You have 2 real solutions. All right, we factored these. What multiplies to 72? It differs by 1. If something can factor, please factor. Don't try the quadratic formula on everything. You technically can use it on any question, but you'd be wasting a lot of time. What multiplies to 72 and differs by 1? 9 and 8. Middle term's positive, so it's positive 9 minus 8. If x plus 9 equals 0, x is a negative 9. If x minus 8 is 0, x equals 8. What multiplies to 80 and differs by 2? Negative 10, positive 8. X minus 10 is 0, x is 10, x plus 8 is 0, x is a negative 8. What multiplies 35 and adds to 12? 7 and 5. X plus 7 is 0, x is a negative 7, x plus 5 is 0, x is a negative 5. What multiplies to 8 and adds to negative 6? Negative 4, negative 2. X minus 4 is 0, x minus 2 is 0. X equals 4, x equals 2. And we are getting there. So you don't want to do traditional factoring here, and you don't use only use the quadratic formula if you have 3 terms. You can't say what multiplies to 0 and adds to or differs by 20. No, thank you. Instead, they both have a 4 in common. You can divide everything by 4 if you wanted to and say this. And then they both have an x in common, so you can factor out the x. That's one way to do it. You still get 0 and 5. Here I factored out the 4 and the x they both have in common. 4 divided by 4 is 1. You had 2 x's, you took 1 away. That's why you have an x minus. 20 divided by 4 is 5. You had an x, and you took it away. If 4x equals 0, x is 0. If x minus 5 is 0, x is 5. Essentially the same thing here. You can factor out a 7 and an x on the outside. 7 divided by 7 is 1. X squared, take away the x is x, plus 14 divided by 7 is 2. 7x equals 0. X plus 2 is 0. Those are your 2 solutions. 49, you can handle 2 different ways. You can factor it because what multiplies to 49, and because it's a negative, differs by 0. There's no middle term. And that is 7 and 7. And one of them has to be negative because you have a negative product. And negative 7 plus 7 is 0. So it factors, and the cover-up method would say x equals negative 7, and x equals positive 7. Or you can do like we're going to have to do in 55 and a few on the next page. You can move the 49 over, and then you can take the square root of both sides. Don't forget about plus or minus because positive 7 and negative 7 squared give you 49. 55, I divided everything by 2 first. And then I move the 16 over. If I take the square root of a negative 16, it's going to be plus or minus I root 16. The square root of 16 is 4. 4i, plus or minus 4i. And this brings us to, finally, the last page. Now, we talked about this in class. 56 I could have factored. It's 3x plus 1, x plus 1. If you don't see that, that's fine. We're going to use the quadratic formula. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2 times a. So it's negative 4 plus or minus. This is 16 minus 12. Well, that's 4. Any calculator, you always must test it out. What's the square root of 4? The square root of 4 is 2. So I can't leave my answer like that. Instead, I write out both situations. Negative 4 plus or minus 2 divided by 6 would be negative 4 plus 2 divided by 6, which gives me a negative 1/3. And negative 4 minus 2 divided by 6, which gives me a negative 1. All right, take a look at 57. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2 times a. I get 49 minus 52. It's a negative 3 on the inside of the square root, which means it's going to be I root 3. Negative 7 plus or minus I root 3 over 2. Take a look at 58. Some of you might be like, oh, it factors to be 4 and negative 2, but 4 plus negative 2, granted that is 2, but 4 times negative 2 is a negative 8. This one won't factor. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. 4 minus 32 is a negative 28. This will get you maybe half credit because you got to take the I out. So 3 different answers here. That's an okay answer because some of you, if you type in the square root of 28, you get a decimal, 5.29. So you can leave your answer like that. Some of you, when you type in square root of 28, you'll get a 2 root 7. So you'll call it 2i root 7. divide everything by 2. That's also okay, but if you're going to take pre-calculus or calculus one day, negative 2 divided by 2 is a negative 1. 2i divided by 2 is a positive I. Any of those is fine. X equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. 81 minus 48 is 33. Now, I think a good, like if you have 3 terms and a is not 1, it might be a good idea just to use the quadratic formula right now. Even if you can, it could be factored like 56 and 62. 60 is kind of a duplicate of the last page. Divide everything by 2, and you literally had this question before. All right. 61 is also very similar to one on the last page. Divide everything by 3. This won't factor, so move the 25 over. It won't factor because your answers involve imaginary numbers. Take the square root of a negative 25, so it's plus or minus I root 25. What's the square root of 25? 5. And x equal, again, here's this, it does factor to be this if you want to try. If not, you're going to say x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. 100 minus 96 is 4. What's the square root of 4? 2. You have negative 10 plus or minus 2 all divided by 6. There's the plus version, there's the minus version. Those are your 2 answers. All right. Lastly, 63. Don't worry about the possible bonus. There's not going to be a bonus. So x equals negative 10 plus or minus the square root of 10 squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. 100 minus 80 is 20. So that's an okay answer. Again, if your calculator tells you it's a decimal, 4.45, I think, then you're done. That's okay. If your calculator tells you it's 2 root 5, then write 2 root 5. There's no I here because it's not a negative 20. That's a better answer. I can divide negative 10 and 2 and 8. Doesn't matter what's inside. That's in radical GO. Can't touch it. I can divide negative 10, 2, and 8 all by 2. So I get negative 5 plus or minus a 1. 2 divided by 2, root 5, all over 4. Any of these 3 answers will be acceptable. All right, folks, have this done. You'll turn it in on Monday, and we'll be ready to take this test on Tuesday. This is Yak Math Video signing out.